Hi there, welcome. In this video, I want to talk about using role playing in the inner workspace to help reprogram your automatic coping responses. This video is part of a series about the private inner workspace, what it is, what to expect, and how to get the most out of it. And if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released, please subscribe below. If you don't know me, I'm Julia Fridal, and I help people transform unhelpful coping strategies at the root so they can build the lives, relationships, and experiences that their deeper self really wants. My work draws on Buddhist teachings, Western psychology, and nature-based wisdom. And I've been guiding people through the inner world for about 15 years now. So human beings are far more automated than many of us realize, meaning a vast majority of the actions we take happen automatically without us consciously choosing or deciding. And this is necessary because if you stop to think about just how many choices are made in a given hour or a given day, if we had to consciously deliberate over every emotional response, social interaction, or decision we make throughout the day, we'd be completely overwhelmed. So our system learns what needs to happen and then automates the process. And it learns by recording what we do and then running that program on repeat if it gets us what we need or expect in the moment. The problem is that sometimes the responses our system learned were helpful in one environment, but are no longer helpful now. Or they may provide short-term relief at a long-term cost. This is especially true for the strategies we learn and automate when we're young, when we're children, and trying to get our needs for love, safety, and belonging met when we had little agency and autonomy, not to mention a limited capacity for complex understanding. So for example, maybe your system learned if someone is upset, then I need to appease them. That's A and B. Or if conflict starts, I need to shut down emotionally so I don't get hurt. Or if I feel ashamed, I need to become defensive. If I feel vulnerable, make a joke, right? And so these responses may have served you at a time. They may have even saved you. But now, as an adult, they may be creating limitations or suffering in your life. And perhaps intellectually, you feel very ready to change these responses, but you still find yourself repeating them over and over again. We could say in this case that your system has learned that when stimulus A happens, you should do B. And if A happens often, you travel to B often. And so over time, your system learns to expect a lot of traffic from A to B. And so it actually strengthens physiologically that neural pathway, almost like strengthening a bridge that gets a lot of use. The more the pathway gets used, the more your system invests in strengthening it, and the more automatic that path becomes. It becomes so automatic and quick, you feel like you're not even given a chance to choose, right? The movement from A to B just happens instantaneously. So let's say you no longer want to go from A to B, you want to go from A to C going forward. The challenge is that the system is so set up to go from A to B that before you can even think about going to point C, you have to take an additional step, which is to resist going to point B. And that alone is quite challenging. And this is really important to understand because many people become quite frustrated with themselves when they know they want to react or respond to things differently than they have in the past, but their system seems to take over. And before they know it, they've already given the old automated response. So there are two things that need to be learned here. One is some non-reactivity, the ability to increase that little space between stimulus and response so that you have time to prevent yourself from going down the familiar pathway. That is amongst the deep work that we do in my meditation training called Become Ocean, and a link to that is below. The second thing we need to do is start building a stronger pathway from A to C. And one way I do that with my students in the inner workspace is to role play path A to C, the A to C path. So for example, we might role play setting boundaries instead of people pleasing, or we might role play staying open instead of getting defensive in the face of a criticism or a request. Oftentimes, a person may not know what the healthier option C could even look like. And in that case, I'll offer to model it a few times first, and then we'll switch roles and they can enact their version of the new response. At first, role playing can feel awkward. That's super normal, but people usually get used to it and start to jump right in because it's so effective. People often come back quite surprised and delighted that they were able to do the new response in real time with someone. Because every time you run the A to C program through your system, even if it's in a contrived setting, you strengthen that pathway and you make it more accessible under real life conditions. The system learns, oh, we know we can go this way instead, and we know how to do that. It's no longer sort of an unknown field. When you pair this with the continued work around feeling safe to embody your preferred ways of being, you will start to experience real change in how you navigate the world. Eventually, through repetition and commitment, the new circuits start to outcompete the old ones, and the path from A to C becomes the effortless automated response that does happen. I do want to say that sometimes insight alone can be enough to wake us from the spells of our maladaptive automated behaviors. But other times, insight needs to be paired with active practice in order for behavior, especially responsive behavior, to truly change. Playing out the new pathways in a safe space allows the system to test run the new path and become more familiar and confident with it so that you don't have to try to navigate that unknown path under the pressure of the moment. Again, it takes repetition and practice, but over time, the old pathway weakens from disuse and the new pathway becomes easier to access in real life, in real time. So I hope that's helpful. And if you're looking for support in your own inner work, you can find more information about the work I do in the video description below. Thank you, as always, for being here. And please remember, if you'd like to be notified when I post new videos, you can subscribe below. Thank you so much.